Greetings. So this is going to be a little bit of an exercise in basics. Even I need an overview on general basics and basics in drawing, basics in painting. Keep it simple, keep it basic. Because if you notice, there are some pieces of artwork that are just filled with detail. But if you strip away the detail, you notice that there's something not right about the artwork. The composition's off, or the perspective is off, or whatnot. And some of this can be an issue with some of my drawing. You get lost in the details so much you forget that you're creating an image, not a mess of details pretending to be an image. So we're going to go into some little bit of basics on cross-hatching. I don't presume to be an expert. This is just my understanding of the principle. We're going to have a toxic waste barrel. Mr. Barrel is very unhappy about being toxic waste barrel. Could be a soda pop can. We do that. Soda pop can. It's lost its little tab. So one of the things about cross-hatching is usually it's done like this, just to various degrees. So you have this, and you have your closer cross-hatching for sections where you have. So before we get into the cross-hatching, one little thing about shadow. So depending on where your light source is, so if you have a light source right here, presume that it's really close, like the light bulb is right here. You got a little work light. So you draw a line from there to there. It's like a vanishing point. So you'd presume where the other side of the barrel is. So you draw the line from there to there. And you establish this so you can understand where the shadow is on the barrel to understand what you're going to do here. So for one thing, you can block off, so you could have a little highlight. So you'll line a little highlight right here. And then you'll have the highest contrast core shadow here. And then what you'll have is basic shadow here. And depending on how strong this light is, you'll have another core shadow here of high intensity, and then reflective light here. So technically, you have the highlight here, and then this core shadow here. This right here would be the main shadow. This right here is shadow, but it's also in regard to reflective light. So unless it's an absolute pitch black room, there's ambient light here that's going to reflect off this surface and back into here. So this isn't going to be completely dark. And then you kind of guesstimate roughly there. Because if you're facing the barrel in this direction, that's where the highlight's going to be. And then from this direction here, follows. And then from your direction here, again, following the same principle of foreshortening, here. And since this is your highlight, this is your highlight. So it can be, your highlight could be, depending on the intensity of the light here. Let's see, get that. Depending on your the intensity of the light here, this can be the color of the barrel. If it's blue, it would be a blue, red if it's red, whatnot. Or it could be an actual reflection of the light, so it'd be white or whatever color the light bulb is. If it's a warm color, it'd be a warm highlight. And then what you would have here, because you want your shadow to form around the object here. And because this would be like the event horizon, or the little line between the sky and the horizon on a sunset, where this would be the darkest right here. Sometimes it's just in spite of the contrast, so this is dark just because this is in contrast with this right here. It would be like, you look at old landscape painters. The landscape painters, they would have a night sky and then they would have a moon, and the moon looks really, really bright. But if you take that moon, you take a piece of white paper and you put it up against the moon's going to be 2 or 3 shades darker than the paper. So the moon's brightness is specifically because of its contrast to the night sky. And the same principle right here. So this is dark mostly because of the contrast with the highlight. But you're creating, because this is a drawing and not a photograph, you're creating the illusion of the contrast. And then you'd want to follow through with this coarse shadow right here. And then if you want, you can add in a little bit here, just ambient reflective light. With cross-hatching, one of the other things about cross-hatching is following directions, not directions like step 1, step 2, step 3, screw all that. It's directions like the foreshortening. So with this right here, you're relatively following the curvature of the barrel. You're creating the illusion of curvature by the lines, how they are laid out on there, just to create an illusion of dimension. Because unlike painting with drawing, you're creating the illusion of volume through the use of line. So you would build the shadow with some semblance of direction with foreshortening. So you like this, you know, kind of keep this, the core shadow to be relatively within a right angle of the sides of the shadow. One of the reasons is too many weird angles can cause visual friction. So say there's Mr. Barrel, he's got a little friend right here. And so you have another foreshortening here. If these angles, if this line work right here was at this direction, it might conflict a little bit with how this appears with this. It's just a managing of your angles. So, and this is how close or how far away your light is. So if you have a strong light, you're going to have a very, very strong line here. But the thing about this line is all of this area right here, there's some semblance, again, if this is in a dark room, there's an awful lot of reflective ambient light in this area. So like this right here, this is going to be darker than this. You won't necessarily have all the highlights like here. You can manage that to taste. But the closest from the origination of the shadow, the sharper the lines. As it goes further and further away, the more dissipated it becomes. And so you have your little companion here. So with this, again, this is a lot of dependent. So if you had another second light source, like a really weak light bulb right here, you could have him again create, kind of get a guesstimate of where that intersecting line is from where this comes down. So I'll put this in a regular another video in regard to how this exactly works out. So say your foreshortening is here, and your light source is right here. It's a light bulb right here. So you follow that would be the center of the little brother of the barrel, here to here to here. To there. And that's kind of where you want to find the angle of where it's going to meet with the shadow here and here. And so you have, I'm going to change into a different lens in the next video. This moving around is getting kind of tedious. So again, I'm keeping this basic, but one of the things here is I'm not in the how do I say it? Explaining this is a bit new to me. So if it seems chaotic and messy and bizarre and tough to follow, bear with me. I'm learning how to show people something that has been kind of an innate practice. I don't really consciously think about these things while I'm drawing, so putting what seems to be innate into a pragmatic way of lessons is a new process for me. Anyway, back to the light show. So you have your shadows here, so you can build in here. And again, depending on the intensity of the light here and how close or far away it is from the origination of the shadow, then you can, as you move further and further away, you can space the lines out further and further away. And again, figuring out, so again, like vantage point there, so you would have your main shadow here, and then your heavier core shadow here. And then trying to follow a little bit of this. You'll notice too is usually this correlates with this. So this is out of alignment, but this is just to show you an example of how this will work. However, if you're adding this second light source here, it's going to be casting a shadow here. So what you can do is you can just continue that shadow, and you follow this all the way to here. And then all the way to there. Because this right here is going to follow from here all the way off the picture. Depending on the intensity of this light and this light, where one shadow intersects another shadow, that's going to be darker. But since the light is going to be cast there, that's not so much of an issue. One of the principles with crosshatching, at least how I've known the premise behind crosshatching, is that the best cross-hatching follows the curvature of this. So you wouldn't want to do cross-hatching this direction unless the tone that you're wanting to create is dark enough to where the line contradicting this curvature here doesn't overpower the curvature it's got to follow. So for instance, this right here, if I really wanted to darken that up, I could go completely opposite. So actually I'd be, following the opposite curve of the barrel. And it creates a nice dark band of shadow, but that would be one of the few reasons to make a line contradict the direction it's supposed to follow. Anyway, as I get better in making these more clear and comprehensible, and I get my process in explaining this in a more systematic way, this will become clearer. Again, it's innate to me. I understand this like I understand breathing. It's just concrete lessons are different than understanding something by intuition and to explain it as such that's clearly understandable is another thing. So anyway, thank you for watching.